A very good evening to one and all present. On behalf of Study Circle, I invite you to the 85th meeting. The topic for today is a continuation of last week's topic, civil trial, examination of parties, admissions, interrogatories, discovery and issues. Now, the resource person for the day is Dr. N.V. Badarinath, former presiding officer, DRT1 Chennai. I would now like to invite Mr. Vaidyanathan to give a brief introduction of the speaker and the welcome address.
Good evening, one and all, to the participants, seniors, and my legal fraternities. I felicitously invite you all to the 85th webinar meet organized by the Study Circle to configure our legal profession in this lockdown. Today, the context consists of the topic on civil trial, examination of parties, admissions, interrogatories, discovery, and issues in part 2, which are indispensable under the civil trials. The orator of this series is Dr. N.V. Badarinath, former presiding officer, DRT1 at Chennai. It is his quintuple session. His lectures are prominent for its interpretation over the provisions along with precedents. It is being the great immune booster for the participants, especially to the budding lawyers as like me, to confront the critical civil trials, which he supplies these vaccines at even intervals during this pandemic without any postponement. I ardently used to say that the resource person will make today's session the most interesting. And sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vaidyanathan, and good evening to you all. Well, today's session is in continuation to the earlier session, which was on admissions, or rather examination of parties, admissions, interrogatories, discovery, and issues. So far, we have discussed about examination of parties, where the role is that of the court and the initiative must be from the advocates. And then after examination of parties, then we have also discussed about the admissions, interrogatories, and discoveries in part. In today's session, we're going to complete the remaining part of my brief information on these topics. Once again, I fairly confess before this learned audience that my lecture is primarily aimed at young lawyers, and the standard that I possess is only to convince the young lawyers on the subject, but not many professors whom I see here on the screen. Well, professors of law, I mean, right, be that as it may. Well, I have said in the beginning of my speech on this topic that the reason why we have chosen this topic is to ensure that the trial of a civil list, not only smoothly and within a well-established, within a well-controlled time, but also most effectively. See, a trial is a very important stage in any civil litigation. So parties, when they proceed for trial, huge preparation is needed. That preparation starts from pleading and it continues. But the chances of improving the trial, no doubt, are very much available under the provisions of the code. But if you don't take the steps on time, then the right that you possess may turn into a discretionary power of that court. So I'm trying to convince the learned youngsters here that don't take the situation to a level where the court permission is required for you to put in a document or to put in a witness, to make a pleading or delete a pleading. The pre-trial exercise, which in short is the discussion today and yesterday, if done well, will have more comfort during the trial. So with this object, we will proceed to discuss the remaining provisions of this act. Well, during our earlier discussion, we on rule 1 to 11, 21 to 23 of order 11. Order 11 specifically deals with discovery and inspection. The discovery of what? Discovery of material facts in controversy, discovery of documents relevant and material to the issue involved in the suit. These are the two important discoveries that we think of when we refer to order 11. This discovery can be achieved by taking recourse to two methods. First method is interrogatories. See, these are all the options available to the parties. No court will mandate you do that and you don't do this. And when you want to do it, of course, you need a leave of the court. So the first part is that the interrogatories, by delivering interrogatories with the leave of the court, you will be able to gather relevant information. Now, the second part of the discovery is what we are going to decide today. Now, this is the second part of our discussion, focuses on discovery of documents. Discovery of documents. Now, what is meant by discovery of documents? See, if we go by the scheme of the filing of a suit in terms of order 7 or a written statement in terms of order 8, you may recall that we have discussed that it is imperative for the parties to file the necessary documents relied by them. And if the document is not in their possession or power, to state in whose power and custody it is in. Therefore, so far as the documents that are produced by the parties, either along with the plaint or the written statement, as the case may be, that doesn't require any discovery it requires only inspection or perusal by the advocates for the purpose of strengthening their case. We are not talking about that discovery of documents. The fact that the language adopted here, the word used is discovery, is something referred but not produced. Something found to be relevant to the pleadings in the form of a document, but not produced, not disclosed, not exhibited. Because exhibited, I'm not using much in the literal sense at this stage. Because an exhibited means during the course of the trial, it is put to the witness. Then once exhibited, then the marking with. But after all, exhibition means putting it to the knowledge of the witness or the party, as the case may be. So when we are talking about a discovery, please note that discovery of documents, we are not discussing anything about the documents that are filed by the parties along with their pleadings. Now, at times it happens that the parties refer in their pleadings certain documents, or by virtue of a document filed by them, it may become necessary to see some documents connecting to this main document, but that is not filed. So normally what will happen? People are, see, this is a pre-trial exercise. We are talking about a pre-trial exercise because we want to equip well before we go to the class in the court. So this pre-trial exercise, if the party had not produced the document, and if you don't resort to this order and wait till the trial and then give a notice to him to produce, then you may have to answer, satisfy the court as to why you have not asked for this document earlier, or if you want to file, you have to satisfy the court why you have not filed it earlier. Because earlier order 13 rule 2, since repealed, it is, I think, order 7 rule 14 and order 8 rule 1, rule 4 also. So there you have to explain, and it's a different scenario there. Already much water would have flown under the bridge because it's a trial stage. Therefore, don't imagine such situations and we say, oh, anytime we can file, we have 151 CPC. If not a relevant provision, I can still come under it, or we have a provision, I can convince it. You may be able to convince it, you may be able to get the leave and file it. But I tell you, the advantage that you get, if you are be prepared in terms of order 11, will certainly be not there when you resort to order 7 rule 14 or order 8 rule 1. Therefore, let us now focus on this and see how beneficial it is. Because many a times in our practice, we don't give much importance to these provisions for various or variety of reasons. Yet, but I tell that it is the area, these are the two areas I always feel order 6 and order 10, order 11 are wonderful provisions. And in fact, these provisions are aimed at facilitating a very, very effective, comfortable, less time consuming trial. Since they are ignored both by courts and by lawyers, today's civil trial is taking years. Now let us get back to this point of what we are talking about, discovery through documents. Now, when I said the documents, we only talk about those documents which are not filed by the parties, but were relevant for the subject controversy. How to get that information? See, here again I pause and tell. I said pleadings are the backbone for any civil. We draft a pleading, then you issue a notice under order 11, rule 12, get a document. Then you need to then seek an amendment if you get a vital information on that, or if you get a contrary information than what you have pleaded, you may have to ask for striking off a portion of the pleading. Therefore, this exercise is, according to me, better if you resort to even before you file a written statement, if you are a defendant lawyer. Of course, for plaintiff, it's a different story. So let us see what it is. Any party may, without filing any affidavit, apply to the court for an order directing any other party to any suit to make discovery on oath of the documents. So a direction from the court to party by either of the parties to the list to disclose on oath the documents. Okay, we can see in this on the screen and then documents which are or have been in possession. See the language here. What documents can be sought to be? What is that? which are or have been in his possession or power relating to any matter in question therein. Simply. So, a situation may arise whereby you may be required to peruse some documents which are connected to the document already filed, but those linked documents or connected documents not filed. Main document only is filed. In such a situation, it is more appropriate for you to enforce the sub-rule 12 of order 11. And then once you file this in the form of an application, see here, if you see the language, any party without filing any affidavit. See, this is the order, but we have a rules of practice. Rules of practice also to a large extent influence the procedure, right? So under the rules of practice, any interlocutory application shall be supported by an affidavit. Therefore, we need to follow that affidavit petition mode. Then, after filing such an application, then on hearing of such application, the court may either refuse or adjourn the same if satisfied that such or make such order either generally or limited to certain classes of documents as may in its discretion be thought fit. So it is the discretionary power of the court to either allow all or few of the disclosure of the documents you have mentioned, and it may allow, it may not, or it may defer orders on it saying it is not this stage or the situation is not right. So this is the, see, leave whatever the court thinks of. But if you exercise this, you will have a complete party to you in the list he is relying on or intending to rely in future and may cause you surprise and may discomfort you. Now, it is a very, very important section because the breach of this section is so, rule is so drastic that the court can pass a very, very harsh order, which I will take you a little later. So either of the parties, then plaintiff can ask, defendant can ask. But it's the discretion of the court. Like interrogatories, you may put 10 which are relevant. If all are relevant, fine, all may be considered. There is no quota here. The court will certainly take all the criterion is it should be relevant. So if you adopt this exercise, the benefits, first I said, is that if the person is bound to answer that, then let us see, if you apply, then what will happen? Then let us go to 13(1)(3), affidavit of documents. The affidavit to be made by a party against whom such an order is mentioned in the last preceding rule has been made. For instance, the court says, you produce document 1, 2, 3, 4. See, again, it's clear and specifically, very specific. You can't say vague, right? Produce that document dated so and so, like specific, as far as possible, as practical as possible. So once you do that, then if the court is satisfied and orders it, there is a format of the documents therein mentioned, and shall specify of the document therein form of C with such variations. This discovery we are talking about is on the application of the parties. That is why I said, and I am repeating many times, it's the parties to choose this beneficial provision. Court on its own will not do under this provision. So it is for the parties. So a party resorting to this, and the reply has come, and if the reply is not in line with what the rule mandates, we will see what the consequences are little later. So firstly, a production of document at the instance of party. Next, there is one more provision also, where under rule 14, it is the power of the court to ask for production of a particular document. Let us read this and before we go into discussion. It shall be lawful, I'm reading sub-rule 14 of order 11. It shall be lawful for the court at any time during the pendency of any suit. See, till the suit is disposed of, at any time during the pendency, right from institution till it is disposed of, the court has got the power during the pendency of any suit to order production by any party thereto upon oath of such of the documents in his possession or power relating to any matter in question in such suit as the court shall think right, and the court may deal with such document when produced in such manner as shall appear just. So this power is vested only with the court. So if the court on its own is of the opinion that production of particular document is required for the effect disposal of the matter, it can at any time order so. Now, then you are now very clear as to the distinction between the order 11-12 and order 11-14. This distinction is so important that if order 11 is not complied with, sorry, rule 11 is not complied with, the consequences that flow out of that breach will not arise in case of non-compliance of the order under rule 14. It's a different, not so severe or drastic. Any order violated, well, of the court is certainly its own, it has its own repercussions, adverse. But if a party invoking rule 11 and the other party not complying with it, please see, let us see the difference in this. Now this, the difference in between these two is well explained in rule 21 of order 11. Let us go to rule 21. Where any party fails to comply with any order to answer interrogatories, this we discussed earlier also to a limited extent, interrogatories not complied or partially complied, again asked for proper compliance, not complied, then what are the consequences? We have referred that. Now for a while leave interrogatories and let us see where any party fails to comply with any order to answer for discovery or inspection of documents, he shall, if a plaintiff, be liable to have the suit dismissed for want of prosecution, and if a defendant, to have his defense, if any, struck out and to be placed in the same position as if he had not defended, and the party interrogating or seeking discovery or inspection may apply to the court for an order to that effect, and an order may be after notice to the parties and after giving them a reasonable opportunity of being heard. So the same adverse consequences that flow when interrogatories are not properly answered will flow when discovery ordered by the tribunal, discovery production of documents ordered by the court is not complied with. This is the drastic effect. So, however, when it comes to the order made by the court under 14, 21 doesn't cover 14. 21 doesn't cover 14. That's why I said there is a distinction. I am also fortified by the ruling of the Andhra Pradesh High Court, which is reported. Ritika, can you show that ruling? That judgment, if you read, you will know the difference. The difference is quite clear. We will understand it by reading 21. It said, but if you want more authoritative pronouncement on it, one can see the ruling. I'll give the citation. Citation is, yeah, I can give this. It is Bhagavati Textiles versus Dr. Subba Raidu, reported in 1980 to Andhra Law Times, page 33. Will give a clarity on that the drastic consequence of dismissal of a suit or then striking of the defense will not be there in case of non-compliance of the order under 14, but certainly be there in case of or in case of rule 11. Now, at this stage, let us refer to an interesting judgment under this. I think I forwarded that also. State of AP versus Sundarlal, AR 1976 AP. See, this is how drastic these consequences. Please note down this citation. It is AP High versus Sundarlal, AAR 1976 AP, page 175, division bench. Well, this was a case where a party had filed an application under Order 11, Rule 11, requiring the state to answer some interrogatories and also to produce some documents as enshrined in the Rule 11. Then the court ordered that documents be produced. But the state had not responded to it. Remember, it is an order under Rule 11 of 12 of Order 11. Rule 12 of Order 11. That state has not answered it. Then what happened once the state failed to answer it? Just now we read 21. The party filed a petition under 12, under 11, 21, Order 11, 21. Then the court found that there was no valid reason for the state to refuse to answer that, refuse to comply that direction. Then the state was found that it breached Rule 11 and the defense of the state was struck down. The claim of the suitor was allowed. This was confirmed by the Supreme Court. Therefore, this AR 1976 AP, page 175, which is a case between AP High Court and State of AP versus Sundarlal. This gives us a clear picture of how drastic this provision is and how useful it is also. If it is drastic to one party, advantage to the other. So I want every young lawyer to bestow attention on these things. Make use of this. Make use of this so that you are strengthening your case from all corners. and will have a comfort during the trial. So this is a very, very interesting provision under Order 11, namely 12 and 14. These two are to be complied with in the manner mentioned in these provisions, and non-compliance would lead to adverse consequences, right? That is the insofar as the discovery in brief is concerned. Now, let us go to the other important aspect of strengthening the pre-trial process is inspection of documents. Well, inspection of documents is opened. That too after posting is last chance, finally, parameter, on cast, all that no further time, so many steps. Then bundle is opened and document is read. Because of so many reasons. But I tell that if possible, it should be the reading of the documents and the inspection if it is not available with the parties or the lawyers and is in the possession and domain of the other side. That exercise should be done well before going to the trial. And I tell you the advantages of it. There are, it will make you so strong and so confident when you go to the trial if you resort to sub-rule 15 of Order 11. Let us see what it is. Right. Every party to a suit shall be entitled at or before the settlement of issues to give notice to the other party in whose pleadings or affidavits reference is made to any document. See, we were in the beginning itself, I said, we were discussing about a document which is not produced at that stage, right? You wanted, it's a pre-trial. Normally, it is the party relies either with the plaintiff or written statement and disclose where in and in whose power it is if it is not filed, right? And later on, they may file with the petition, take the leave, and then if leave is given, document will be received. That is what. We are not talking about that. We are talking about getting the document which is not filed and want to see it, to inspect it, to know what it is, and not to wait till that stage. So this is the emphasis here. So what you have to do shall be, you are entitled to do is to give notice to any other party in whose pleading or affidavit reference is made to any document. Enough if there is a reference in the pleadings, reference is made to any document, or who has entered any document in any list annexed to the pleadings. You know, under the rules, you need to give a list of the documents. You have listed it, but not filed. You said presently I don't have, or I have somewhere, or all kind of things, but not said anything, but you listed it, right? So that is also covered, listed in his pleadings. To produce such document for inspection of the party giving such notice or his pleader, and to permit him or them to take copies thereof. See how wonderfully couched this sub proviso is, and which is rarely taken serious note of while by the trial lawyers. See, I tell you the advantage of it. You are, if you are say, let us say you are defending a suit for specific, your suit for specific performance is defended. According to you, you have paid the sale consideration, partly in cash, partly by checks, partly by checks. But the defendant denies, saying, I have not received any amount. the so-called agreement of sale is not supported by any consideration. Let us say that is the drastic plea. Then do you wait till the trial is commenced and then file a petition or examine the witness, file a petition to summon the documents from the bank about the checks given, or will you do something before? Well, you may do it at that stage also. That has its own advantages, disadvantages. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it pre-trial preparation. If you are serious about it and if you want to strengthen it, this is the right time. You can give him a notice in the form that is, say you produce your bank statement, because bank statement of an individual, the third party cannot have an access. That, and when you file a petition in the court, and that requires a counter to be filed, that requires an inquiry, and till that time you will not be knowing whether you get it or not. And supposing you get it, mostly you get it, let us say, then you discovered something different from what you thought of. Then what you have to do, you may be compelled to amend the plaint. Then amendment of a plaint after commencement of the trial, no longer a right. It is again the discretion of the court. See how many hurdles. That's why I said, fortunately, the CPC has provided opportunity to amend, do that, every kind of thing under 151 or whatever stage, whatever court it is. People use 151 and so many provisions that CPC is not exhaustive of it. It has somewhere that, but don't think of that. That is a delaying trial. We are not on that. That ultimately may not be productive even. We are talking about strengthening. Now, in such a scenario, where as a suitor, when the defendant filed a written statement saying nothing, denying everything, then if you say, see, you can ask in such a situation, his bank account is in his domain, right? So you can ask him, produce your statement of account showing. Then from that statement, you can cull out so many inferences. That is a different story. We are not going into it. But if you now take that, then if you get the relevant information from your end, right? You are strong. You have got an adverse information, let us say, or information that you different from what you have expected. Then you can amend your claim. It's a pre-trial stage. You can file additional pleading. All that becomes easier. And then that is one advantage grave for either party. Either party. Even defendant can exercise similarly. You produce the money receipts which you claim to have given, but that is not enclosed. Only agreement is filed. All the receipts are not filed. See, many cases, let us see, people are filing only main document, other documents are not filed. If filed is a different story. Something else still requires you use this provision only when the situation is ripe and conducive, right? Otherwise, won't. No. So we are talking about a situation where relevant documents connected to the main not filed. So either party can then amend the statement, reframe their strategies, and go for a trial. Not firefighting mode because once trial starts, you are in a firefighting mode. That will lead to confusion, time factor, so many things. So avoid that. Now, come back to this section again, this particular rule. You are asking that defendant to produce. For that, you made an application. Then, if the court and the party, then court has allowed it, directed the defendant or the plaintiff, as the case may be, to produce that for inspection. Because inspection, you can see, you can take copies. That I've already. Now, what will be the consequences here if he fails to comply the order? Please see this, so drastic that is. Not afterwards be at liberty to put any such document in evidence on on his behalf in such suit unless he shall satisfy the court that such documents relates only to his own title, or he being a defendant to the suit, or that he had some other cause or excuse which the court shall deem it sufficient for not complying with such notice, in which case the court may allow the same to be put in evidence on such terms as to cause or otherwise as the court shall think fit. So remember, as a suitor, you have asked him to produce some documents like a bank statement or your IT return, something. Then simply you said, because you can reply anything, you said in reply, you said, I'm not willing to produce, or it's not relevant. It is whatever some answer which you felt. And result is that you have not produced. If you don't want to produce it at later stage, then it's a different story. But it is required for you to produce later, but at this stage you don't want to produce it. Then later on, you cannot produce it without the leave of the court. See, take the very same case. Now, when you enter the witness box as a defendant, one invariable question would be that these are the checks from your bank account. This matter ends there. He won't say yes, because his defense is that he has not issued anything. Then it becomes necessary for him to show how they were passed to the plaintiff. So he has to then rely on his own record, which asked by the plaintiff earlier, but not produced by him. So he cannot automatically introduce those documents. Like this, there will be umpteen situations. So a fairness requires a clever advocate would definitely write in such a manner that it is neither admission nor denial. That is always there. We are not talking about that, because the advocacy, and especially on the civil side, the way the pleadings are drafted and then the questions are answered, well, a lawyer can be very well seen in that. So we are not talking about those situations, but remember the difficulties that one has and the advantage the other side is getting it, be that a plaintiff or defendant. Therefore, he will not be produced, and he can also be subjected to costs. That is why, remember, if you are sure that certain documents which the other party is holding but not filed, I mean, holding means not filed, and you can, without waiting for the trial to commence, you can issue a notice as a pre-trial exercise of strengthening the case. You can invoke this sub-rule 15. Therefore, of course, there is a procedure of giving notice, and that procedural compliance is there. That doesn't require much the explanation on that or any discussion. What I'm telling you is, these are all various ways and means which require attention of lawyers, especially on the trial side, well before they go to trial. This is then, once the order is passed, the court will fix a time and all that. Within that time, one has to inspect, and the costs have to be borne, all that. These are all procedural. Therefore, I will skip 17, 18, right? 8, 17, and 18. So now we have completed our discussion on discovery. As I said, discovery can be through interrogatories, discovery through documents which are not filed but referred in the pleadings or connected to the matter in issue, and the production of on its own. So this is a part of an important stage in the pre-trial of a suit. Then we have admissions. Admission is covered under Order 12. Remember, this admission is different from the admission under the Indian Evidence Act. when explained well, the explanation can be taken. It is not that a person admitted is stopped forever. An admission can be explained. We have discussed that in our pleadings. We have also seen the recent trend of the Supreme Court and the rulings, uh, admission by mistake, without knowing facts fully, all such situations. We have what kind of admission is binding, what is not, what can be explained, all that we have covered. Now, we are talking about a different admission. This admission is also having a very important role in the trial. See, this is this Order 12 Rule 2 is many times issue a notice under Order 12 Rule 8, under Order 12 Rule 2, Rule 4, all kind of things, by one party to other in the format that is prescribed. Now, it is also one of the methods available to the parties to unearth information which they feel relevant and useful to their case, or to destroy the other side's case. So we cannot undermine Order 12. It is also equally like 11. 12 is also an important thing. 12 is also important in brief about Order 14 issues. It plays a vital role because issues are mostly taken as a job of the court. See, don't leave it to the court. That anyway, I'll discuss that when we take up Order 14 a little later. Now we are on admission. Now this is you are asking a person to admit. Unlike in the pleadings, parties themselves admit. Deny or admit, that is there. That admission is voluntary. We are not talking about. Here is you are asking through a notice whether you admit this fact, whether you admit this document, whether you admit this situation, factual. This is what precisely. So apart from the admissions that emanate out of pleadings and other aspects by filing a document also, it may admission. Filing of a document is admission of the document, not the contents. Contents have to be proved, established as per the procedure established under the Indian Evidence Act. We don't go deeper into that now. Now we are talking about admission. Now, who can seek admission? Any party to a suit may give notice by his pleading or otherwise in writing that he admits the truth. See, it is a simple thing. A defendant files an admission by a memo saying, I am admitting this claim. I may be given concession in the rate of interest, or give me 6 months time to execute a sale deed, or let him bear these extra interest, whatever it is, give me interest I pay. We have discussed this under Order 10. Instantly, one question by learned senior lawyer, Mr. Om Prakash, as to where a part of the claim is admitted, then the other part is denied by. He said if the decree can be severed, to the extent that it can be severed and which is admitted, a decree can be passed. But yesterday I came across one ruling of the Honorable Supreme Court, wherein the Supreme Court has said that a part of the where there is a part of the matter is admitted, a decree can be passed to that extent. Therefore, I think that has also been cited. So this admission both under Order 12, Rule 1, or admission in the pleading, both are covered. I said two forms, that is voluntary admission in the pleading. Other one is by giving a notice. This is also voluntary, but after giving notice. After giving notice, one can say, I am admitting. Without even going into the pleading, straight away he can admit. Or after denying something also later he can file a notice under order 12 and say, I am admitting a part or in whole. In such an event, then the court can pass a order. Court can pass an order. Then this notice, then there is another type of notice. Notice to admit documents. Firstly, we are talking about the contest. Now, notice to admit document. This is a very, very important provision. 2 and 2A is most important there. Because 2 speaks about a notice by one party to the list, to the opposite party, to admit within a specified period whether he is admitting the document or not. Then it is for the other party to respond to it. Remember this process, no order or leave of the court is required. It is between the parties, that is through lawyers it is exchanged. If they are defended by lawyers, otherwise the parties themselves can exchange. Earlier we are talking about interrogatories, leave of the court, inspection, production, leave of the court, except under 1114, court on its own. So here also, we know where the order of the court is required, right? Now, then let us see what is rule 2. Either party may call upon the other party, either party may call upon, intercede, the other party to admit within 7 days from the date of service of notice of any document, saving all just exceptions. And in case of refusal or neglect, see that is mostly happens, neglect to admit after such notice, the costs of proving such document shall be paid by the party so neglecting or refusing, whatever the result of the suit may be, unless the court otherwise directs. And no cost of proving any document shall be allowed unless such notice is given, except where omission to give notice, in the opinion of the court, a saving of expense. Therefore, this is a very, very important provision, often neglected. Of course, as the consequences are not according to the parties, they feel that it is not very serious, unlike under 11, where 21 says, 11:21 says, struck off or dismiss. Here is a different, here also adverse. So a notice in a proper format and then ask him to admit within 7 days. And there is service of that. Then he had neither answered in any form. He just took notice and neglected it, right? He can say, I won't produce, I will produce later. It is to fish out information. Some answer he can give. It is not mandatory that once order 12 is invoked by one party, other side should automatically produce it. But it should answer. It should answer that. It should give reasons. It should say something, right? See, then 2A, let us see what in such situation, what will happen. Documents deemed to be admitted, if not denied after service of notice to admit documents. Every document which a party is called upon to admit, if not denied specifically. See, lawyer denials must be specific. Anything vague, well, will not give you result or a relief. We should be clear, specific. That's what it says. Every document which a party is called upon to admit, if not denied specifically or by necessary implication, or stated to be admitted in the pleading of that party, or his reply to the notice to admit document, shall be deemed to be admitted except as against a person under a disability. That is the minor consent and all kind of things. Therefore, it is deemed that once you issue order 12 rule 2, and then it is properly served, that person has not answered at all within the time specified. then there is a presumption that it's deemed to have been admitted, provided that the court may in its discretion and for the reasons to be recorded require any document so admitted to be proved otherwise than such an admission. So again, you are at the mercy of the court. Supposing the court has not felt that no proof is required, because under the Evidence Act, right 59, documents admitted need not be proved. They take it that way. And but a court may think, no, this is not admission, let him. So if the court takes that view, fine. Otherwise, there is a problem. There is a problem. Then that is the first consequence of non-compliance, though it is between parties. Next, where a party unreasonably neglects or refuses to admit a document after the service on him of notice to admit documents, the court may direct him to pay the costs to the other party by way of compensation. See, these two provisions are procedural. Normally, no court would take the drastic step up, saying, because you have not responded, I would. Unlike under 11, 11 is something different from 12. 12 also has an adverse consequence, but the gravity of it is not so much when we compared with the violation of 11, as 21 speaks about very clearly, and that is settled under various rulings of the Supreme Court. Therefore, this is another advantage. See, this is how, if you give notice and keep yourself armed with a response, supposing he refuses it, okay, TK, then you plan your defense, how to get that. You will file a petition, says he refused. So give a direction to the defendant to produce. Then your case becomes very strong. The court cannot dismiss your petition because you exhausted a remedy of production, which he said he has not given consent to produce. Rather, he has not produced it, he refused, neglected. So what is the recourse for you? You file a petition, either under 714 or 81. Then the court will pass an order, because the court will normally cannot refuse it, because you have exercised a remedy available but unsuccessful. Therefore, this is an important thing for you to know about the notice. So this is a simple provision, but I only touched it. I made a specific caption because every small provision here has got a vital and an important role. Now I conclude by referring to 14, so that because it's a small chapter, but why I have chosen 14 is 14.2 is for the reason that, see, issues many a times, most of us are under the impression that framing of issues is the job of the court alone. Let it frame, we can file a petition for amendment or recasting the issue or framing additional issue. I'm telling you that is not the correct, though that is also available. Remember, unless issues are settled, I'll only take 5 minutes and then conclude. We'll leave some time for questions if anyone has. These issues will set a direction, a proper direction for the list to proceed. The issues, can be issue of law, issue of fact, right? Then issues of law with or without pleading can be framed, very well. And to some extent, mixed questions of law, such as limitation. Limitation is not a pure question of law. It's a mixed question of law and fact. Rarely it is a pure question of law. Be that a mixed question of law or a pure question of law, yet in terms of section 3 of the Limitation Act, limitation can be raised, notwithstanding the absence of a plea. So legal issues may not pose much problem, because some factual background, if it is there, the law can be applied. But it must be the duty of the advocates to ensure that a proper legal issue is framed. Now, next is the factual issues of facts involved in the case. See, the facts involved in the case. Here, please for a while pause and go back to order 10. We were discussing in detail about order 10. So many things can be thrashed out at that stage. Take only the core issue to the trial. So if you are well versed with order 10, then you will ensure that trial only the core issue will go. And what would be the core issue? The most contentious issue only, not the other trivial things. So it would help you if issue is clear. You will only lead evidence to that. You need not bother about the other. So this is very, very important. You have to guide the court. Normally, the courts have the habit of framing the prayer as an issue. If it is a suit for perpetual injunction, the issue would be whether the plaintiff is entitled for a permanent injunction. If it is a recovery suit, where the plaintiff is entitled for the suit claim. If so, what relief? No, then the prayer can never be the issue. Prayer is the ultimate. The prayer is is what the suitor or the defendant wants the court to do. Issue is what? Issue is that if answered in favor, will answer the prayer either in favor or against. So both have to be separately dealt. Mostly the courts are framing that. Please avoid that. Tell the courts that you file a memo and see that proper issues are framed in case issues are not framed. So it is not the duty of the court to frame issues. It is also the lawyers can file draft issues. Always file a draft issues, it's better. Don't wait for the issues to be recast or modified. Now, secondly, issues arise, I said, fact and law. Normally, many courts, the lawyers, sorry, if I say, are under the misconception, if I can say so, that issues are, no doubt it is one of the main planks, but let us see 14.3. I want to highlight 14.3 because lawyer has a role here. That's why I'm taking 43. The court may frame issues from all or any of the following material. See, the court here, legislature has cleverly avoided pleadings. You know, pleading under order 6.1 is plain and written statement. So if you were to make a issue under pleadings, then you are wrong. Nowhere it is envisaged. Please see, court may frame issues from any or all or any of the following materials. Allegations made on oath by the parties or by persons present on their behalf or made by the pleaders, such parties. Number 2, allegations made to the pleadings or in answer to interrogatories delivered in the suit. So pleadings is only one form, not all. Then the contents of the documents produced by either party. This is a very, very important thing. Many times it is missed. See whether any court had framed an issue regarding the contents of the document. Did you ever come across? Because according to me, if a document is produced and the pleadings are read, document is admitted or denied, or contents admitted or denied, execution admitted or denied. If can be ascertained from the pleadings, then for the purpose of proving the document, the court can set a proper issue. Instead of leaving the parties to right from beginning till end, examine everybody's crime, attestar, all kind of things, produce bank statements, all kind of things in a money suit. So my endeavor here is to tell that please verify the documents with reference to the pleadings that have come out. Because only after exchange of pleadings, one would go for framing of issues. And if there are interrogatories, see the answers. Thrash out all things which are admitted already. The other day we discussed about a tenant landlord case. What can be thrashed out, what can be left. All that, guide the court on those lines. Have a proper issue. A proper issue framed is like having a good driver when you sit in the rear side of your car, in the rear seat. Because a good driver will take you home without any stress or strain and comfortable. Otherwise, every driver takes us to home. All that you know. Don't have that. Have comfort. At the end of the journey of trial, oh, you should not think, no, this wrong I have made. This mistake I have made, our court made, or somebody made, and try to do some exercise of repair. So in issues, lawyers have a vital role. So my dear young lawyers, be prepared for a trial, not when the trial commences. Start your preparation right from filing the pleading. Continue that till you complete the process and get a positive result for your client. All these provisions are very important. Please bestow your attention. And well, I said in the beginning that I stopped practice 5 years back. And the place where I presided over, the tribunal which I presided over, CPC is hardly applicable. And this forum has provided me the opportunity to read. Not only to read CPC, recapitulate my days of practice, but also learn from the questions of many here that yes, this is the correct way. So I'm happy that I'm given an opportunity to share some of my random and limited thoughts that I have on these questions. It is more of my enthusiasm rather than my knowledge in this field to come before all of you. I had a comfortable time all through, and I think 4 sessions I have taken. Maybe I've taken more time, but thanks for your patience, and I look forward to some more interactions with this learner gathering. And once again, thank you. And any questions, to the extent I know, I'll try to answer.
If there are any questions, there's one question from Mr. Rashid. I'm just unmuting him.
First of all, thank you, sir. Thank you for a wonderful lecture.
Sure.
And my question is, sir, I think you have noted that a defendant can file the discoveries and interrogatories since the filing of the pleading of the plaintiff. So whether that attract the limitation of written statement of the defendant.
Sorry, the limitation means you mean whether it can be exercised before filing written statement?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, it can be done. In fact, we have said it is better if you do it. Depends upon, however, you have that 90 days time for written statement, which is also not mandatory. On the last occasion, I gave the judgment of Justice Lahoti, where that it is discretion, not mandatory. But we leave that. Let us try to have this done within that 90 days time. As soon as the summary is served on you, you know the case of the plaintiff, since you are the defendant. So you wanted to file, you have to file written statement within 30 days or 60 days extended. Beyond that, it's a discretion of the court and that. So first 30 days, you see you have all the documents enough to frame a written reply statement. You prepare a reply statement. Supposing you feel you can improvise it or you are short of it, you can go for this interrogatories. You can ask for notice. You can give a notice. You can elicit the documents. You can see inspection. See the order. If the court feels no, this is premature. There is also a reason where if premature discovery is not allowed. It all depends on the facts of the case. But one thing is certain: you need not wait till the written statement is filed. You can do it before or soon after written statement. Better before trial.
Okay.
So that's what.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
There's one question from Rashid himself. He was asking for an example of Order 11, Rule 14.
Order 11, Rule 14. 14 is, we have now no example means an illustrate what exactly he wants. Production of document by court, no. See, it is purely the discretion of the court. If you see the language, it shall be lawful for the court at any time during the pendency of any suit. So before a judgment is pronounced, let us say both parties have not filed an important document, which would certainly set at not the controversy or highlight the whatever is the lacuna or what kind of. If the court feels, it can ask the parties. But the point not produced. The court can only record it. It can't say I will dismiss the suit, or it can say I will struck off the defense. That is the difference. Please read that 1980 Andhra Pradesh judgment. The citation has been put and it can be sent to you again. It is already there. Now, that way it is. It is the power of the court, not anything to do with any. If the court feels at any stage, pre-trial, post, and before judgment, it can. It can. Yes.
I think that seems to be the end of question answers for today's session.
One, sorry, one, if you all permit me. I was yesterday, I started looking at the rulings. I came across one wonderful discussion on how the trial court, the trial system in our country is going on in the civil disputes. There are wonderful observations by Justice Chandrachud. And this matter emanates from a judgment delivered by the Delhi High Court, which can be shown on this page. And the discussions are extracted in live law. I had taken it out. This is with reference to Order 11 only, which we discussed. I just read 2 sentences and come. It says, this happened on 18th April 2021. You can see in the live law also if you wish. The Supreme Court on Friday orally remarked that parties are not taking civil proceedings seriously because of the laxity of the courts. But civil proceedings mean nothing to the parties. This is because the courts are so lax. Observed Justice D.Y. Chandrachud while having a civil appeal. Our civil justice system is a defendant. That's all. It just defend. Leave it till that. That's all. Defendant system. The reason is that courts do not take provisions seriously. Courts include advocates. After all, it's one of the important pillars of this stakeholder is advocate. This is what they were referring to Order 11 to 21. Same. This you will find in live law, and the earlier judgment of Delhi High Court is reported, and that is put. That
I can show that Delhi High Court judgment.
Delhi High Court. So please see.
This is the judgment.
Hindustan Zinc versus this judgment was questioned. Why the trial court we are not doing Order 11? Had it been done, it said why the Supreme Court to take up all this. This is the job of the trial court. Please see this. This will give you a wonderful idea of what we discussed. This one, Hindustan Zinc Limited versus Durga Constructions Private Limited. As again is this. And if you have live law, you are a subscriber, you can say, you can, there also you get, it is 18th April 2021, very recent. Okay, thank you once again.
I think this was a case of the defense being struck off, sir.
In this case, yes, defense was 1121, you are right.
Yes.
Defense was struck down. We can see the paragraph also here, struck down by Delhi High Court. The bills were not produced. So many are there, complex like that. They have taken the plea. But ultimately, see in contract matters, in arbitrations, hundreds of bills will be there. Sometimes they become, all 100 becomes relevant. Sometimes few. You can't simply say these records are bulky, we don't produce. This is where those lines only this judgment, I believe, proceeded. Yes.
Yes, this as against which it went to Supreme Court and the SLB was dismissed.
That view of the matter, I find that this is an extreme case where the provision of Order 11, Rule 21 CPC should be applied. So, notice given, not complied. The conduct of the appellant, as noticed above, would clearly bring it within the category of extreme cases where there is a contumacy on the part of the defendant or a willful attempt to disrespect the order of the court as laid down by the Supreme Court. Babbar Sewing Machine Company versus Triloknath. That case refers to exceptional cases of dismissal or striking of defense. So, we just take these provisions light. Anyway, interesting judgment.
I think that's the end of the Q&A session. So I would like to thank you for addressing us for the past couple of weeks. We're extremely grateful for you having taken your time to explain every topic with great detail. I'm sure many would benefit from your lectures. I thank the organizers for having organized this lecture series and the participants for their enthusiastic participation, which is shown in the Q&A in every session. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir.